Hi, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. We're sowing some seeds today in these plug trays, and we're doing it now at the beginning of winter because these seeds are going to need a cold period for them to germinate. So the topic of this video we'll talk about today is why chill seeds? Why do they need it? And there's only so much I can say that is general. I will give you the general instructions for stratification, but the thing is that every seed has its own requirements. So I'll talk about the general, and then we'll go into the specifics on some sets of seeds here to show you how you get the right instructions for the right seeds. First off, here in the most general terms, which varieties of seeds are going to need chilling, and your clue to look for it is that they are perennials, trees, and shrubs, things with longer life cycles that come from cooler climates. So if it's a hardy, cold hardy perennial tree or shrub, that's when you'll be looking for stratification requirements. That's the search term you would use in Google to get the specific instructions. If it is an annual, a veggie or an annual veggie or a tropical, it's unlikely to need it. What conditions do they need during stratification? Well, it comes down to a temperature between 1 to 5 degrees Celsius, which I guess makes the equivalent of about 34 to 41 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 or 3 months. Those are the most general instructions. Some seeds require something different. Some of them require a warm period before the cold period or varying lengths of cold. But if I had to guess or the instructions were vague, this is the treatment I would do, and then I'd just watch for seedlings towards the back end of that time period, because sometimes they will begin to sprout during the stratification. They need to be placed into a moist medium. Now in this case I'm using a peat perlite mix or a composted wood mix, depending on which one tray I've got going here, but you could also use things like perlite vermiculite. Sand is fine for stratification. What I would tend to stick away from is household compost or garden soil, because it just tends to be too rich in plant pathogens or rot pathogens that could rot the seeds in the meantime. I have these out in the greenhouse, and you could simulate these conditions in the fridge inside. There are pros and cons to that I will talk about in just a minute. And while I have them out here, you might see a plastic cover. I cover it over a little bit, just loosely, to keep the moisture levels more consistent and to discourage birds from going through the trays. And even if you do have a cover like this on, or maybe even especially because you have a cover like this on, you may need to be watchful that rodents don't get under there and start making little homes in your trays. Now, I mentioned that this plastic cover can be useful for maintaining consistent moisture, and consistent moisture is something that you actually need for this stratification step. The seeds require that moisture to help break down those germination inhibitors in the seed coat, so for that reason it's not a good idea to let these seeds dry out at any point during this process. Now, you may be guessing that the fact that you're keeping them cold and moist over a long period could lead to problems with rot or mold, and that is something you have to watch out for. So for that reason, you can see that this is left a bit loose above it. Also, if you were doing this in the fridge, you would either want to keep a loosely or ventilated Tupperware container or loose baggie around it, but still allow some air circulation, and you'll want to check along the way to make sure that rot is not taking hold and rotting your seeds before you finish. Let's really quickly talk over the pros and cons of doing it in the fridge rather than out in the natural environment in your yard or in a greenhouse with your natural winter temperatures. And the fridge just gives you a lot more control. Some climates do not consistently get these kinds of temperatures every year, and so if you're in a more borderline climate, or if you want to start it in a different time of year than during the dead of winter, then going in the fridge is a great way to get more control. It also takes some pests like rodents and birds out of the equation. So you get more control in the fridge, but not everybody can manage that much space in the fridge, and it also is an additional cost or hassle of doing it inside. Why pay to chill when you have natural temperatures that can do the same thing? For every seed variety that needs stratification, there is some secret recipe following nature of what triggers germination in that seed variety. Growers have done this through trial and error, but that information should be available to you through your seed supplier. One of the seed suppliers that I've used a lot is Gelito. They're out of Germany, and they provide excellent germination instructions, whether it needs stratification or not. And I'm going to give you 3 of the varieties that I'm trying this year, and I'm going to show you the link on their website. It's in the culture tab under their description. The first one is is Astrantia maxima, which is a cold germinator, and they give the instructions down below and what that means for that variety. Another one was Veratrum californicum, and I think the third one was Angelica Vickers Mead. Now, one thing I will say about the carrot family, Angelica and Pusidanum is another one that I'm trying here, is that if you have very fresh seed, you'll have to watch in that first step of the stratification whether they start to germinate right then, because fresh seed from that family can germinate very quickly, whereas older seed often needs that stratification step. This is also true of hellebores. Fresh seed tends to germinate quite quickly, but old seed needs the cold treatment, so you'll have to watch for that. Now, I don't limit myself to one single supplier, so I've placed an order this year from Plant World Seeds. I've ordered from them before, and what did I get from them? I got asphodel, and I also got a kind of a berry called tumbleberry, and although it didn't specifically say what stratification it needed for the tumbleberry, I can kind of line that up with other rubus varieties. So if you can't find the specific variety, specific instructions, sometimes it's good to look at a cousin or a near relative to see what works for them, and in this case, other rubus or blackberry or raspberry varieties require a cold stratification step. A third seed supplier I returned to this year is one called Twining Vine Gardens. They're a local seed seller, and what I got from them was Franklinia and also Clerodendrum, and they are excellent at providing on-package great germination instructions. They offer those on their website as well. Right, I hope that answers some of your most basic questions on why and how you might chill seeds to improve germination or as a requirement for their germination. And I hope I've also emphasized enough that all of this information should be specifically double-checked with your seed supplier or referenced on Google to get the specific treatments for the plants that you're trying to grow. If you have any questions about what I've done here or I've talked about today, please drop those into the comments below the video. I'll see what I can do to help.